Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to A Dose of Dr. Gwen. I am Dr. Gwen, your host, and today is June 3rd. It's a Thursday, and it is noon Eastern Time, a sunny, humid day in the Boston area. Today's show is on the COPPA Act, or the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which is now 12 years old. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak at an FTC roundtable rules discussion on the COPPA Act. It's being reviewed, and I thought, you know, what a wonderful opportunity to give you all some information about this. This actually impacts all of our children every time they go online, and a lot of parents don't know anything about this rule. So I wanted to give everybody a little information and update you and tell you a little bit about why the rule is being reviewed. Yesterday's roundtable was called Protecting Kids' Privacy Online, Reviewing the COPPA Rule. Now, 12 years ago, Congress got together and decided to look at children's privacy online and come up with some ways to protect kids. And at that time, the concern was some of the same concerns we have today about, you know, just protecting kids in the Internet space. And if you think about where the Internet was 12 years ago in 1998, it was very different than the way it is today. I mean, back in 1998, we had no broadband. We only had dial-up, so it was very slow. There were just rudimentary websites, not these fancy high-speed Web 2.0 websites. They were very static, didn't have a lot of material on them compared to today's websites. There were some chat rooms, but certainly not interactive, big discussion forums. There weren't really such things as Facebook and MySpace. You know, the concern was definitely some stranger danger like we have today. But the biggest concern of the day was really collecting online information and targeting kids by advertising and marketing. And it's similar to what we have today. In fact, today we even have bigger concerns because there's more of a role of business online, more targeting of advertising to kids, and even more ways to collect information. So kids' privacy, I think, today is even a more, it's a bigger albatross because there are more kids online of all ages, and there's more ways to sort of get kids to disclose information about themselves. So now that this act is 12 years old, the FTC thought, you know, let's get a bunch of experts together and tease through the act in a gazillion and one ways, and that's exactly what we did. I was on a panel with a bunch of wonderful experts, and we got to talk about a thing called actual knowledge, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Other people talked about the different definitions of what's a website and what's the Internet, and other people talked about parental consent. But let me tell you what the act actually is, because some of you may not know. You know, every time your kids go online, you might know that some sites have this magical age of 13 in their terms of service. Well, that's not just magic. It's not that that was pulled out of thin air or that sites just uniformly decided that this is going to be the age that you have to be online. This was actually set in motion 12 years ago by the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act as this is the cutoff. If you're 13 or older, you're considered old enough to be online without concerns of your private information being collected without parental consent. If you're below 13, you need parental consent to be on these websites for information to be collected about you. That's why, you know, a lot of sites that are geared towards children need to have parental permission. So let me just read you just sort of a basic introduction about the COPPA Act, and then I'm going to get into some of my concerns about kids and privacy. And, you know, this is one of these issues that there are just so many issues about kids being online and privacy that I'm only going to really cover the tip of the iceberg today. My goal today was just to let you know that there's this thing called COPPA that exists when your kids go online, and that you're going to be contacted once in a while if your kids are under 13 to get permission for them to be there to get their information collected. So this is what it's about. In the introduction says this: Congress enacted the COPPA to prohibit unfair or deceptive acts or practices in connection with the collection, use, or disclosure of personally identifiable information from and about children on the Internet. The Act requires operators of websites directed to children and operators who knowingly collect personal information from children to do a number of things. 1, provide parents notice of their information practices. 2, obtain prior verifiable parental consent for the collection, use, and or disclosure of personal information from children. 3, provide parent upon request the means to review that personal information. 4, provide a parent with the opportunity to prevent the further use of that personal information that has already been collected or the future collection of personal information. And 5, limit collection of personal information for a child online participation in a game, prize offer, or other activity of information that is reasonably necessary for the activity. And finally, 6, establish and maintain reasonable procedures to protect the confidentiality, security, and integrity of the personal information collected. So basically, this whole thing is saying that if you are allowing your kid under 13 to go online, that your kid's privacy will be protected, but you have to give permission for that under 13 child to be there on that site. And this is for general information sites. So, for example, for your child to go onto Facebook under 13, your child actually can't right now, because not only would that violate the COPPA Act, but Facebook's terms of service says you must be 13 or older. So some of these sites have sort of a double parameter set in place here. Now, how does this act work? Well, a number of things. One is sites have to, verify that the person is a child, and that's kind of tricky. So if a child under 13 tries to go on and they, try to sign up and they put in their age, and if they're being truthful about it, and the child says, I'm 12, then the site can't sign them up. If a site does try to sign them up, then you as the parent have a right to contact the site and try to get them removed. And a lot of sites they're supposed to have a form where you can contact them and say, hey, you're collecting personal information about my child. And because it violates this act, you can report them to the FTC. So that's a big to-do if they actually do this. And the other thing that you want to remember is, well, some parents will say, well, what's the harm in letting them go on this site? Why can't I let them fudge my age? Well, the thing is, if you let the child fudge their age, you're teaching them to lie. And that's something that we talked about a lot yesterday in the roundtable. And some parents will allow their child to say fudge their age to get on Facebook or MySpace, or fudge their age to get on another site. And some kids will lie about their age and the parents don't know about it. Well, there's a number of issues with that. The first is it violates the COPPA Act, so that's bad. The second is it violates the terms of service for the site, so that's bad. And the third is it gives a message to your child it's okay to lie. So let me just address each of those things separately for a second. Why is it bad to violate the COPPA Act? Well, the thing about COPPA is this protects your kids from online advertising that targets them. And while we don't think a lot about that day to day, these ads that are targeting our kids are really insidious. These companies will actually look at your child just like we do when we shop and when we do different things online. There's a thing called behavioral targeting where companies will actually look at the way somebody is searching online and the way that they post, and they can try to target and entice you to shop and click on things, and it can influence the way our child thinks. And this is true for teenagers too. It influences body image, it influences eating habits, it can influence shopping, it can influence how they want to dress, it can influence behavior itself. So advertising can be very powerful in the hands of children. So it's very important that we keep our kids off sites that aren't intended for them, because we don't want to have them see ads that are really made for adults and maybe not even appropriate for adults, but they're certainly not appropriate for kids. But companies will try to go after kids to sway them to have you buy their product for the kid. So that's the first thing. So by making sure that we understand that kids will be targeted inappropriately with these ads, then if we keep them off the site, they'll be safer. And you might be thinking, but my kid's smart. My kid knows the difference between an ad and a content. Well, the thing is, kids don't. Some of these ads are so savvy, they don't look like ads. And kids don't understand the difference. And these are kids under 13. They really don't understand the difference between an ad that is really an advertisement and an ad and content for a website that gives them information. So that's how sneaky these ads are. So the best advice is a website that has an age parameter of 13 or older, a site where you have to actually sign up and be 13 or older because it's in keeping with the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Stick to the rules. Don't let your kid on if they're below 13. Now, the second issue with lying, not just the age, but the inappropriate content, is you don't want your kids to be on a site where the term of service is 13 or older because they're going to be hanging out with people that are much older than themselves. So you want them to be with an appropriate peer group. This isn't just about letting them do a nice thing and be on a site that they're really excited to be on. Facebook, for example, you might have a lot of family and friends on Facebook, but they're also going to be interacting with the greater web when you're not there and hanging out with kids that might be much older. We know that kids lie about their age all the time, but that's not a healthy habit to get into. And if they start interacting with kids that are a lot older than them or strangers, they can get influenced in the wrong way. So it's important that we make sure that our kids are on the right sites at the right age because it's just healthier for them. You want them to experience a peer group that is truly their peer group and not a peer group that is a pseudo peer group. Meaning if they're 13, have them be with real 13-year-olds, not 13-year-olds that may be 13-year-olds, but some of them are really 10 or some of them might be 15 because you just don't know. And the last reason to not have them falsify their age is we live in a law-abiding, rule-abiding society, and even if we disagree with the law, like you might think, well, I think my kid should go to vote at 16. Well, the voting age in this country is 18, so our kids have to wait until they're 18 to vote. It's just the way it is. So if a term of service for a website is 13 or even 14, we have to teach them that just like you follow rules and laws in society, you have to follow rules in school. There are some home rules that we all have within our families. You have to follow rules for websites too. So if an age of a website is 13, they have to wait till they're 13 to be on that site. That's the sign-up rule for that site. So it's not for us as parents to look the other way and allow them to change their age. That teaches them that lying is okay, and we want them to learn to be truthful adults. And if we teach them that lying is okay in that one instance, they will try to lie in other instances, and they've learned that message from us. So it's really important that we try to teach them that that's not okay to do. So those are the big reasons to sort of stick to sort of the rules with all these websites in just kind of a general way. Now, looking at sort of privacy online, what do you do if you find out your underage child has gone on one of these websites and signed up and you don't like the site, or you your child sort of falsified that you gave parental permission to be on a site? They gave away your email or sort of faked the parental verification step, which does happen to some kids. Well, all sites have a reporting mechanism. You should be able to go to their help center, or they should have a button where you can report that there's an underage child on that site. So you want to just report that. And if you really have trouble figuring out how to remove the child's profile and you're not getting anywhere, you can report the COPPA violation to the Federal Trade Commission, to the FTC. So you have to keep pushing it. MySpace has a very nice description of how to remove your child's profile. Facebook now has some steps about how you can delete the profile. The best thing to do is talk to your child. And when you sign up for all of these sites, the person who signs up actually controls the profile for any site and website you sign up with. So you can partner with your child to explain why they have to take down the profile until they're old enough. And that's the easiest thing to do. Now, even sites directed at children, take Club Penguin or Webkins or Neopets, a lot of them want parental permission. So if you find out your child is on a site and they did not get permission correctly, you should be able to control where your child is and contact that that company and have something done about your child's account. Now, there are many sites that do not have advertising on their site for younger kids, but as kids get older and start entering the teenage realm, you'll see more and more advertisers on those sites. So that's a thing to keep in mind. And they do store kids' information, in cookies and other high-tech ways, and that can track back to your child. So that's what we're trying to protect here. We're trying to protect our child's identity and online information and the ability to be targeted by marketers and online advertisers. So it's important that the take-home message here is this whole age thing about being 13 and being on the right site is about protecting not just protecting our child's innocence, but having our child not fall victim to online marketing and influences that will change their behavior and shopping patterns and get them into trouble and sort of a growing up too soon in the wrong direction kind of way. I read some quotes about privacy that I think really say it all. One by a woman named Sarah Chalky says that human beings are not meant to lose their anonymity and privacy. And I think that that's true. On the one hand, we don't want to be anonymous and we don't want to lose our privacy. But at the same time, when we're online, we want to be who we are online, but we don't want to have to use a pseudonym and be cloaked. But at the same time, we don't want our information to fall into the wrong hands. For children, the best way of protecting them is to make sure they're on the right sites for their age in the right way. And what I learned yesterday at these FTC roundtables is there's a lot of people who are looking at the COPPA Act and trying to make sure that it's worded in a way so that businesses can have their best practices for websites in a way that allows the act to be followed fairly, so that our kids can be on the internet and thrive there at every age without being penalized for that. And I think there is a way of getting our younger kids, and especially that 8 to 12-year-old teenage group online, maybe a little bit more easily with our involvement, and to make it less cumbersome, because right now the process is really cumbersome, and I think the best way to do it short term is for us to be more active participants in our kids' lives. If we partner with our kids and we know where they want to go online, that step of parental verification, getting permission from parents for kids to go on sites should be a lot easier, because we will know where our kids want to go, and we will be able to talk to our kids about why they can't go on Facebook yet because they're not 13. It should be a lot easier if we are involved with our kids more actively. The second quote was from Hillary Clinton, where she wrote, where she said, "I believe in a zone of privacy." And I like that quote because a zone of privacy, it's not like you're locking down yourself. It's just kind of, I picture it as almost like a bubble where you've just got this little bit around you of privacy, but the rest of you can be sort of public. If we create a zone of privacy around our kids, including our teenagers, that should allow them, if you view that on the online world, of interacting freely online, but with some parameters in place so that they understand how to interact. Businesses understand what proper behavior is towards our kids of all ages, especially for online advertising, and we understand what our role is as parents in helping enable our kids to get online, protecting their privacy, and holding businesses accountable for protecting their privacy. And I think if we do that and we consider it a zone kind of defense, it should work. And the third quote that I love is relying on the government to protect your privacy is like asking a peeping Tom to install window blinds, and that's by John Perry Barlow. And that is so true. It's great that we have the FTC involved, and I learned yesterday that the group that manages the COPPA Act just is an outstanding group, a bunch of incredibly smart lawyers who really have the best interests of children at heart, and I think we should be very thankful that they're the ones sort of managing this division for the Federal Trade Commission. At the same time, we can't rely solely on them for being the gatekeepers of our kids' privacy, because their job is really to help the businesses manage their businesses within the confines of the COPPA Act. We have to be more involved as parents, I think, in making sure that the government isn't taking over the job of managing our kids' privacy. It's up to us. So I think the take-home message here is you've got to know that this act exists, and you've got to know that businesses are beholden to it for their online websites and blogs and social networking sites like Facebook and MySpace and anything new that comes down the line, including Twitter. And what our job is as parents is to make sure that we understand what our kids are doing online and what the rules of the road are. And one of the important rules of the road is this Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and that it's there because there are things that happen online, just like there are things that happen on TV with advertising. Now, one important thing that I do want to make sure you understand is that when we're talking about the online world, it's not just computers today. The online world is very much up and go. It's mobile. In fact, it's in the palm of your children's hands in their cell phones. So one important online piece that we always have to remember, that I think we always forget, especially lately, is that our kids' cell phones are becoming the online world if they haven't already. Most of our kids can access the web from their cell phones. Texting is certainly becoming an important online world in our kids' gaming lives. If they have a Nintendo DS or a PlayStation, especially some of the portable handheld devices, all of those have online capabilities. And on future shows, I'm going to tease through some of these issues, especially in the fall, so you can understand more how these things have privacy issues, because they really do impact the health and well-being of your kids. I think for now, if you're just aware that almost everything our kids do in the digital world can impact their privacy, and people can collect personal information from our kids through that, and businesses use that personal information to sort of figure out how to target our kids with ads and how to use ads more on TV, on the games, and on the cell phones. Then you start to realize how important it is to be involved more with what our kids are doing. Ask once in a while to see your kid's cell phone, to look at the games they're playing, to look at the applications they have, to look at their texts and look at the things they're doing, and just see if they're being influenced by ads. Do the same thing with their gaming systems, and do the same thing with their home computers, and just really know where your kids are online. If you do that, you'll be doing much more for their health and well-being than anything else you've done in the world. And I think it's really just kind of fostering conversation and knowing that you are the gatekeeper to your kids' privacy. But it's not about locking down the computer or locking down the cell phone. It's about helping your children make age-appropriate smart decisions for what games they play, what applications they download, and what sites they visit and participate in. And if you do that and you become kind of their helper in choosing smartly, then privacy won't be so much of an issue, because you'll be helping them make good choices. You'll be helping them set up their settings if they're on Facebook, for example, and you'll be helping them find sites and applications and games that are just right for them. So I'm going to leave you with that now, and in future shows, tease throughout these issues a lot more. I'll post some links for the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. And as more information comes out about the Act and anything that's going to change, I will be sure to let you know. But as you go on these sites, look at the terms of service. Click on the privacy link and make sure you understand how the sites and the games and the applications that your kid uses through the Internet handles privacy. And if you're not comfortable and you think your child's privacy is being violated and the site is collecting personal information, now you know that you can do something about it. Now, next week's show is also on Thursday, June 10th at noon, and I'm going to be talking about our smallest kids in the digital space, kids less than 8, not teens, not tweens, but actual little children, and how they go online and how we can keep them safe. Somebody asked me yesterday, well, how young is too young to be online? And I joked, well, as soon as they're born. And believe it or not, I was only half joking, because we live in a digital world, and I think to a degree we have to find a way of allowing our small kids to get online safely and soundly and with their privacy protected as well. And you know, there is a way to do it. So I'll talk about that next week. And in the meantime, you can all go about the rest of your day. I hope it's a wonderfully fulfilling day with some time offline to enjoy the wonderfully lovely, nice weather we're having. And remember, life is unplugged as much as it's plugged. So get some unplugged time for the rest of your day as well. I'm going to do the same. I don't know if I told you this, but I've been getting really into digital photography. So one of my missions is to make sure I have some unplugged digital photography time. And while it is digital, at least it's not plugged into a computer, and it gets me kind of walking outside. So ask yourself, what hobby can you do that's outside and unplugged and away from the computer? So on that note, have a wonderfully unplugged afternoon, and I will talk to you next week. I'm going to put on Dixon's Let's Build a World, and I promise I'll have new music soon.
Let's build a world, make it look better than this one, light the old one up, watch it burn from a distance, a yellow flaming light. I can see in your eyes, 'cause this new world will be, it will be our biggest pride. Look up at the stars, watch them shine brighter than ever. Lie down on our backs and let us see if we could measure the space between here and the moon. This light will die out soon. Did you think that it would last forever?